Hi everyone. Today I'm going to continue on with my discussions of some recent Criterion releases. This movie was released in July of 2022 in UHD. Before it had been a Blu-ray in the Criterion collection as a Blu-ray. This is The Virgin Suicides, a movie from 1999, directed by Sofia Coppola, her debut movie, and it was adopted from a novel by Jeffrey Eugenides, a novel from 1993 that I read back in the day and saw the movie back in the day, but I haven't read or seen either since. But I read this last week. A really good novel, very different. But Eugenides puts the spoiler right in the title. He puts the spoiler right in the first paragraph. And in the movie, it follows suit with the narration of the movie. We get to know that these five sisters commit suicide. So it's not so much a story of let's see what happens next. It's more or less a detective story seen from the standpoint of 25 years later. So the events in the movie are happening around 1975. And the narration in the book is a sort of plural or collective narrative voice. And in the movie, we see, I believe it's four teenage boys who live in the same neighborhood as these five sisters. And we hear one of them narrating the story to us from that standpoint, from the standpoint of 25 years later. These five sisters the boys are infatuated with these five sisters. This is sort of the male gaze in the teenage years. The boys don't understand anything about the girls, but the boys feel like the girls know everything about them. But these five sisters they're sort of imprisoned in this house, and they're not part of the natural social life of the community, which makes them even more mysterious and appealing to these boys. And they almost look like angels. They're presented oftentimes as angels as far as the boys, this male gaze of these teenage boys, 14, 17 years old. So the movie it's a story of religious repression, in the sense that the girl's parents, especially the mother, has a kind of Catholic. She's a very devout Catholic, and she has this notion that girls should be cloistered in the house. They shouldn't be part of the community, so in order to maintain their innocence. And the story can be seen both as a story about loss of innocence to a certain degree, but also a kind of nostalgic, or just, I don't know if it's even nostalgic, but a feeling of days of yearning, of when you're a teenager, and the awkwardness of it, and your transition from being a teenager to a young adult, and all the problems that beset you, the confusion of it all. And the movie is not naturalistic in the sense of what we normally get about teenage stories. And this, despite the fact that the movie relies a great deal on the sort of the top 40 hit records of the mid-1970s. Because there's a real dreaminess. There's a dreaminess to the book, but very much a dreaminess to the cinematography of the movie. I didn't write the cinematographer's name down, but he adopts a very distinctive look in the film, very kind of pastel, vivid kind of colors, and a dreamy kindness, a dreamy kind of surrounding. And in the book. The emphasis is more on the boys' point of view, because the girls are sort of, you can almost see them as figments of their kind of erotic imagination. But in the movie, you have to hire actors to play the parts. And once you do that, once you see the flesh and blood sisters, they become more real, and also in the sense that Sofia Coppola is kind of subtly taking the thrust of the novel from the boy's point of view to the girl's point of views. And speaking of actors, she is absolutely superb in her casting, especially with one of the sisters, Lux, who is the dominant sister in the novel, as she is in the movie. And she cast Kirsten Dunst, who I think was around 16 years old at the time. And she is just absolutely perfect for the part. And the segment of the plot in which, or her story, where the high school heartthrob who roams the hallways, and the girls just, and the female teachers as well, they're just enthralled by his absolute sexiness and appeal. And he turns his eyes on, he can have anybody, they come to him, but he turns his eyes on Lux, played by Kirsten Dunst, and Josh Hartnett plays Trip. And so they're the most fleshed out of the characters, and their relationship is really the centerpiece of the tragedies. And the casting is really good throughout. I mean, James Woods and Kathleen Turner as the parents, Scott Glenn as the priest, Danny DeVito turns up in a very small part. And it's a very faithful adaptation. It's certainly just about everything in the novel, or everything in the movie, comes out of the novel. Again, some very effective changes here and there, and especially on the emphasis on the girls. But a lot of the dialogue, the narration is sort of a condensed view of passage, condensed edition of Eugenides' prose. And in this faithful adaptation, you know, I'm also reading The Godfather right now, and I never read the novel by Mario Puzo, and I'm just amazed there. Everything in the movie is right in the novel. I mean, they're not inventing. Her father is such a great, was so great at adaptations. In other words, they stay faithful to the novel, but they give it a kind of cinematic shape to it. And again, the great casting of The Godfather is one of the is certainly one of the strengths of the film, and casting in any movie. To be successful, you have to cast the right people. So Sofia does the same thing as her father, and why not? In creating such an adaptation that's so suited to the book, and yet is cinematic itself. Now, this was a project that was owned and was in the process of being made, and so as we learn in the supplement, Sofia Coppola wrote the screenplay without any expectation that she was actually going to be able to make the movie, and her father discouraged her from doing that. But then that project didn't work out, and they brought Sofia's view of her screenplay to the producers. They loved it, and then she was able to make the film. So this is again, this is from a 2018 Blu-ray. This is the UHD and Blu-ray, and so the supplements are all from the 2018 and 2018 interviews with the cast, with Coppola and Dunst and Hartnett, and we also get an interview with Jeffrey Eugenides from 2018, and then we get a documentary that Sofia's mother, Eleanor Coppola, made on set, which is really good. We see Francis Coppola. He came to visit and give support for a few days, and and different cast members, you know, of how well that Sofia had grown up on movie sets, so she knew what it was like, and that growing up experience was really paid off with the confidence that the experienced actors like Kathleen Turner and James Woods and Scott Glenn, that, you know, she was able to gain their confidence very, very easily. There's also one other supplement that I want to mention, and that I believe that may be a new one. It's short, about 15 minutes, with Tabby Garrison, and she is active on social media, and I guess a star on social media. I didn't know anything about her before, but she saw the movie, read the book, and then saw the movie. I think she said when she was in the 8th grade, she kept a diary in which she reads excerpts from it that applied to virgin suicides. And if you know, even though this is a book written by a male writer who had been accused of misogyny in some of the reviews, of the original reviews of the virgin suicides, this is a book that really appeals to girls. It really appealed to Sofia Coppola, who thought that the movie was that the book was a classic, and when she read it, and she just had to make it. But you also get the sense of it. I think she titles her diary "Strange Magic," which was the song played in the movie for the homecoming dance. But you really get a sense of what what the virgin suicide, both novel and movie, can mean to a teenage girl. Okay, so again, another really terrific film, and even though the supplements were, that might have been the only updated supplement on this edition, but and a good introduction to Sofia Coppola, and that, you know, her view of teenage girls, or you know, of young women, carries over into the rest of her career. But especially the movie that could make a good double feature with the virgin suicide would be, I think, 2017's The Beguiled. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.